Jumping bodies comprehension questions. Number 1. What does the narrator of the story convince his best friend he can do? A. Jump bodies. B. Find a metaphor. C. See ghosts. Or D. Drive a bus. Number 2. What is a conflict in this story? A. The narrator notices a crack in the window next to his desk that splinters into a web of shattered glass. B. The narrator sees a flock of seagulls overhead while jogging around the track. C. The narrator is telling the truth, but his best friend does not believe him. Or D. The narrator's best friend nudges him and asks whether he is okay. Number 3. Read the following paragraphs from the story. It didn't happen again for another 2 weeks. This time I was in gym class. I was jogging around the track talking to Sammy. I didn't particularly want to be running. It was cold outside. A flock of seagulls was overhead, squawking loudly. I watched them soar above us. Flying was something I always wanted to do. And then, suddenly, I was looking down at a bunch of red uniformed bodies running in a circle, and I was immensely hungry. All I could think about was food and getting more of it. And then, just as suddenly, I was back in my own body. What can be concluded from this evidence? A. The narrator went from being in the body of a seagull to being in his own body, and then back to being in the body of a seagull. B. The narrator went from being in his own body to being in the body of a seagull, and then back to being in his own body. C. The narrator went from being in Sammy's body to being in his own body, and then back to being in Sammy's body. Or D. The narrator went from being in his own body to being in Sammy's body, and then back to being in his own body. Number 4. What happens when the narrator jumps bodies? A. The narrator recognizes the difference between metaphors and similes. B. The narrator starts telling lies which the people around him do not believe. C. The narrator thinks of a story about a man who died but believed he was still alive. Or D. The narrator's mind enters another person's mind and body. And number 5. What is the theme of this story? A. In order to convince people of something, it may be necessary to show them rather than to tell them. B. If a person becomes known for telling lies, other people will never believe him or her again. C. Turning the stove off after cooking is an important safety procedure that should be followed by everyone. Or D. Being able to recognize the difference between metaphors and similes is more important than athletic ability. When you are done, check over all of your answers and then click the blue submit button at the bottom.